Lovely. So this happens to be one of my school time favorites. Good to see that it's still there in schools. So the poem is Wallace and the Carpenter, and I'll tell you more about the poem as we go through the Qriosity talk. But before that, I would like to thank a few people. So a friend of mine, Lieutenant Commander Ajit, is presently at the Indian Naval Academy, and when they asked me to speak on this, he was the first guy I spoke with because there were certain things I wanted to get clear from him. The History Society, AFMC, for giving me this chance. Sarkari Directory, AFMC Quiz Club, and everyone who's turned up today, including all the names that I mentioned before this. Okay, so what I started with, this is not a lecture on the Navy. Okay, I'm not going to tell you what the Navy is or what it isn't, but I have picked up certain things which I feel might be of interest to almost everyone here, and we'll be speaking on that. This is not a serious discussion, okay? So please sit back, relax. If you have stories to add on to what I am speaking, please feel free to add on. You can raise your hand, you can scream out. This is not a formal class. Anything is fine. Any form of audience participation is okay. But we need some context. So there are three parts to this talk of mine. The first part, I'll be speaking about certain naval traditions and customs which most of you would have heard of, might have seen, but might not have heard about the stories which go behind it, right? So I'll be speaking of them. The second part is one aspect of the Navy which is always fascinating. The Navy actually contributes a lot of terms to the English language, terms, words, and it's a study says that in an English-speaking country, in an average, every 6 minutes, a word, somebody who speaks in English throughout the day would be speaking a term of nautical origin every 6 minutes. Okay, it's that common. And the third part, if you guys still are interested and if you still aren't bored, I'll be narrating a story, because what better than everything else that I will be speaking is what has come down the ages. If you guys are still interested till the third part, I will be narrating a story which is from my times in the Navy while I was on a ship. Fine? So, going ahead, how many of you have ever been on board a ship or ever seen a ship from outside? Anyone? Not the ones in service, the cadets? Others? Very good.
So ferries count?
Ferries don't count. A warship. When I say a ship, I mean a warship. You've seen a warship?
No.
You raise your hand.
Very good, very good. Cruise ship. Very good.
Okay, cruise ship. Anyone here who's seen a warship? You've seen a warship? Which one?
एनडी के तो वहाँ पे लगी थी.
That would perhaps be a picture point. So वैसे तो फिर हमारे धनवंतरी के सामने INS दिल्ली का एक लगा है. So that's not a ship. Okay. So if you were to draw a rough diagram of the ship, my drawing is, which must be evident by now, bad. So I'll be making a few sketches to explain certain things to you. Okay. So let's assume this is a warship. Okay. Now read the slide. So warships in their most ancient avatars, they used to be completely fortified. Okay. If you come across a warship in today's day and age, there are parts of the ship which are covered, there are parts of the ship which are not covered. Okay. So this part used to be called the entire part above the ship. This used to be called a castle. Okay. Now this part used to be called a forecastle because it was in the front part of the ship. This was an aft castle, and the central part was called a midship. Now, because this used to be fortified, because the kings used to move via ships, and in ancient times there was no demarcation between a warship and a merchant ship or a ship used for other purposes. Every ship would have a captain or in ancient times a king, and this would be his castle. Now, the reason I am telling you this is because this was called a forecastle in ancient times. In today's Navy, this is called the forecastle, which is a short form of forecastle. which time, because pronouncing this in entirety every single time was a little difficult. Yeah, it is actually foxel. So I have misspelled it here. It's foxel with an apostrophe. So they shortened it down. Yeah, the apostrophe might be here. So they've shortened it down and they call it a foxel. So if any of you happen to join the Navy and if you go on board a ship, I was very curious to know why it was called a foxel. I had used all my brains. Any connections to a fox? No, absolutely not. And then, so the officer whom I encountered in the first flight, he happened to be a shipmate of mine. He's presently at the Naval Academy teaching cadets the very same thing. So that guy solved this doubt of mine, told me this very fine story, which I quite like. So I thought I'll start with this. So the fore part of the ship in today's day and age on a warship is called a foxel, which is a shortening of forecastle. So what I was mentioning, this part, this fortified castle-like part, gives its name to the present day foxel, which is from forecastle. This part, again, this diagram mentions it as castle, but another term for it was also aft castle. This part was called a crow's nest. We'll come back to it in some time. Just remember that this part used to be called a crow's nest. This is the hull, this is the keel, not of much importance. If there's anything, we'll get back to this. Okay, so if ever you get on board a ship, okay, be it a merchant ship, be it a ferry, be it a cruise ship, or be it a warship, there are two terms which are interchangeably used. Okay, again, something which was of immense curiosity to me when I went on board a warship for the first time. So for some strange reason, the left part of the ship is always called port, and the right part of the ship is always called starboard. Starboard. It comes from starboard. Now, any guesses on where the origins of these terms are from? Why? What could it be? Make a guess. Why would the left part be called port?
That's how the boat or the ship would be docked, so that people would put
December.
This
is the port and stuff.
Okay. Good guesses. Very good guesses. Actually, one of the theories is actually somewhat similar to what Anand said. Anything else? Something go into history, deep into history. The
Star navigation, that's the
star navigation is the other part of the story. I'll come to that. So port is okay. This is actually a tribute to someone. Who's this? Vasco. Okay. So when Vasco da Gama actually came to India for the first time, Calicut, when he landed at Calicut, it's actually a tribute to Vasco da Gama. Just considering the fact that he had managed to keep Cape of Good Hope towards the left side. This is just one of the ways to remember his contribution. Portuguese Navy, yeah. No, the Portuguese Navy honored him first, and then it was picked up by everyone else across the world. Right? Starboard, any guesses?
Sexton.
The name is suggested. Starboard, what is it?
Star navigation. You use that side to get your sidereal position.
Okay. So today is a modern day. We've got GPS, we've got very sophisticated systems on board. But in the ancient days, there was nothing. There were only stars. And as we know from Sir's lecture as well, a lot of formations. So ancient days seafaring, the GPS system used to be the position of the stars. Okay. And as the name suggests, there actually used to be a board which would be placed on the right side of the ship, where there will be a sailor placed on duty at 4 hourly or 6 hourly intervals, watches, including watches. He'll be looking for the positions of certain stars, and that would guide him in the direction, in determining the direction the ship was going. Right? That is where the name comes from. It's actually starboard. There is another alternative origin theory. I'll tell you that as well. So this is how the word starboard came into, and if you speak to a modern day navigator, that guy will just say it as starboard. First time, it took me some time to realize that he is actually writing down on the actual word which is starboard. This is the alternate theory. So the Royal Navy says that the word port actually replaced something which was called larboard, which was an equivalent of the starboard on the left side. Larboard had actually come from a ladder. Okay, so people used to, all the loading which was done used to be done from the left, and the mode of loading used to be via a larboard, which again came from a word called leadboard, which again referred to loading. So larboard got changed to the word port. This happened in 1844, long after Vasco da Gama landed here. Again, there are no concrete evidences on the internet that I could find.
Larboard is fine. Larboard se port just came.
Yeah. So if you dig up this part on the internet, you will find theories that perhaps it was done as a tribute to Vasco da Gama. Perhaps. There's no.
That file got lost.
And starboard, again, here's another theory for starboard. It comes from steerboard. So apparently the steering oar would always be placed on the right side. So the word steerboard got diluted with time, got changed to starboard, and starboard is now called as starboard. So we've covered three things: forecastle, which is forecastle; port, which is left side; starboard, which is the right side. Hand salute, you would all be knowing the origins. This is one of the origins. Knights in armor would pick up the visor of their helmet, which could be in either way. This is one origin. Another story which goes that victorious knights, when they had come back and meet the princes or the queens, to shade their eyes, they would use their hand to shade their eyes from the sunlight. They would be using their hand. This is the alternative origin theory of the salute, hand salute. The three salutes of the Indian Armed Forces.
What about that one?
Yeah, so I'm coming to that. So, because this is all about the Navy, I'll speak about the naval salute first. The non-possessive, people who have a palm. Can any make a decent guess? Why does the Navy salute with its palm inwards?
The sailors.
Excellent, very nice. So, the reason why the naval salute has its palm facing inwards, it's not visible to the people outside, is because in olden days, they used to be, even now, if you come onto a steamship, there is a lot of grease, there is a lot of steam, and there is a lot of dirt in the engine room. And in olden times, everybody was supposed to work in the engine room. So, it was considered disrespectful to show a dirty palm to a senior. So, the Navy decided that we will keep our palms inwards. What about the Army and the Air Force?
They didn't want to be like the Navy.
I think the army evidence is show that I am unarmed.
So Air Force is a
And
big
the Air Force was like a hybrid and also a threat pointing towards the.
Great.
So we have both the answers. Army essentially to show your when you are saluting someone, you are giving it's a mark of respect as well as telling the other party that see I have come unarmed. Okay, so I am a friend. The Air Force, Nab Sparsham Deekam, that is its motto. So what people say is this 45 degree is it. Was it? Am I right? One of the origin theories. So the rest, sir will tell us. So it signifies a plating, war plating. Naval weddings. So I'm just going through some very general things before I go to the etymology part. So naval weddings are again, very different from what you would see elsewhere. And this happens to be a wedding I attended in October last year. My friend Thomas is sitting here in Kochi itself. And this entire formation is called an Arch of Sails. Okay. So there's the groom and the bride who are walking out, and he's got 8 or 10 swordsmen, depending on how many he manages to get. Whether or not it's a naval station. So it was a naval station, so he was flush with swordsmen, so plenty of people. And so the bride and the groom will walk out of the church for the first time, and the first set of swordsmen will put their sabers down. That is essentially welcoming the bride into the Navy, right? Yes, they are letting their guard down one by one, and this tradition has been modified a bit of late. It has been made a little more fun. Usually the swordsmen who are standing there, they will ask the bride or the groom to perform something. So I think Thomas was asked to kiss Rita here, and that is how this happened. We've got a video as well. I hope it plays.
Sir, naval recruitment video नहीं चलेगी.
But I mean,
Normal
Yeah, so in the background you see a naval band playing, right? So whenever there's an officer who is getting married in the church, a navy sends across its naval band as a gesture of solidarity. So for every time a pair of swords go down, he has to perform something. We gave him pretty easy tasks. Fine. These are just random things which I thought would be of interest. Gun salute entitlement. We've all heard of gun salutes, right? Just go through this slide. Is there something striking that you can notice? One thing, if I had to,
11 nines.
and that is odd numbers. Why is it so? Any ideas, any theories?
Inside you fire one complete word. Gun crews are.
If you fire one, you might hear an echo. So, no one might be confused कि ये 8 दिए या मुझे 4 दिए.
This is back to pharma coin.
Okay. So there are two theories about it. The first theory is simply it's just a belief. It's a belief that even numbers were inauspicious when it comes to gun salutes, because even number gun salutes were done only when you lost somebody at war, somebody died, right? So this is one theory. The other theory says that this is scientific. The other theory says that the gunpowder back in those days used to use sodium nitrate. Okay, and sodium nitrate was much better preserved ashore rather than on board a ship, because the ship would be going through the seas, it would be encountering moisture. So the entitlement, idea used to be that for every single gunfire that you get, every single gun salute that a ship gives to an ashore establishment, an ashore establishment is supposed to return 3 gun salutes, right? So for a 7 that a ship would fire to a ashore establishment saying that okay fine, I am a friend. So gun salutes also have their origin in the fact that they were used to signify that they were not a hostile proposition, right?
That's how the American gun culture came. I am not hostile. It takes a perverted mind to say that if I shoot at you, I am not hostile.
Also, to take this forward, if you happen to visit naval shore establishments, for example, if you go to the gunnery school at Kochi, which is called INS Dronacharya, along the sea, along the part of Dronacharya which faces the sea, there actually are guns from the olden times which have been mounted. They are just for ceremonial purposes now, but Dronacharya is a unit which is as old as Indian independence. So they have been lying there since then. So it perhaps adds to the theory that also because Dronacharya is right at the mouth of Cochin Port. So any ship, be it a friendly ship or a ship from a different country, would be entering from that port mouth, would be visible to the gunners manning Dronacharya's guns. So that is how it comes. So 7 into 3, scientific explanation, but that still doesn't explain why 19, 17, 15, 13 and 11 exist. So I think we'll just go with the fact that even was considered to be inauspicious.
But there is only one problem with that first theory, which is that the king or the queen gets 100 gun salute, which is the last.
That is actually 1017. They say that to avoid that same inauspicious.
That 101 started after they came up with people giving them XY group. If you go to the Imperial War, you think 100 लिखा हुआ है. That's unbelievable. तो मैंने कहा यार ये यही ऐड कर दो.
If ever any of you travel on a merchant ship or a ferry towards, say from Chimplashuri or on a cruise ship, a merchant ship always dips its ensign whenever it passes a warship. This is a code of friendship which goes beyond ages. It has been in vogue ever since ships have existed.
Every country.
Every country. No matter if you are
Every country push starting.
नहीं फर्क नहीं because in international waters if you are coming across like then if you are on a warship and if you are passing by a busy lane, let's say you are passing by the Strait of Hormuz or Suez Canal, at one point you might there might even be a point where all the maritime vessels that they are crossing their ensigns are dim just because they are paying their respects to people who fight at sea. Okay, this is something which you will observe if you ever go seawards. There is there's a very nice tradition in the Navy, something called cheering, which is also called manning the ship or manning the rail. Okay, so it stands true to its name. There are men who are manning every single part of the ship's perimeter that you can see. So this happens to be, I think this is INS Delhi or one of the destroyers. This is usually done when you are receiving a ship which is commanded by someone senior to your captain, number one. Number two, when you are bidding goodbye to a friendly ship. This is when it is done at sea. When done at shore, this would usually be to bid goodbye to your captain when he is leaving the ship, once and for all. And in the Indian context, because we need to Indianize everything nowadays, so in the Indian context, what we do is we stand at the perimeter, whatever, and we hold our caps in our hands. The arms are extended, and let's say Anurag sir is going on transfer. So the senior most sailor on the ship would give a chant, Air Commodore Anurag keep, and the rest of the ship would and the rest of the ship would be chanting Jai. And this is done thrice. This is done thrice.
That's the time you can mutter something else instead of Jai.
So this is how this is a picture which I managed to find. Unfortunately, all the pictures from my ship
This must be from Fleet Review.
Yeah. This is from all the flags that you see here are of friendly ships which had come down to India for international fleet review. This is from 2016, where I happened to be a part of that. Small thing. These are pipes that you will not find anywhere else. Maybe people using it for decorative purposes. This is called a boatswain pipe. And every time a dignitary is received on board, or even when he is going, okay, there's a special way to pipe it, and its origin initially was during hoisting and during lowering down of the ship's colors. That's how it started, and then it became a tradition that anybody who's senior to the ship's captain coming to the ship will be given this honor. And it's a long drawn pipe, and it's heard for a very long distance. Launching ship ceremony, very common everywhere. In Western countries, you will find wine bottles being broken. हमारे यहाँ obviously एक ही चीज़ है जो हम फोड़ सकते हैं. That is narils and some other things also happening nowadays. Okay, coming to the Indian Navy. How does the Indian Navy name its ships? Any guesses?
Reverse. No sharks.
No, not this. How? What is the system in place? Who does it? How is it done? Who reviews it? Who approves it?
There's a committee. अगर कुछ हम बता दें तो क्या बताएं?
Again, committee. Everything is done by committee.
So, in the naval headquarters, there's a unit called Directorate of Naval Design, right? So, within the Directorate of Naval Design, there is an internal nomenclature committee, which comprises of, which is headed by a rear admiral. So, this internal nomenclature committee will approve a name, right? And again, how it comes about, how it comes about naming ships and submarines strategy. So once it approves a name, that name is put in front of the VCNS, who will then forward it to the CNS. CNS gives an approval, and before taking an approval from the CNS and the VCNS, this internal nomenclature committee will speak to.
तब शिप डिकमीशन हो जाता है.
ये कभी
उसका नया नाम, उस पोस्ट का नया नाम क्या होगा? इसी नामकरण.
So before that, they speak to two other bodies. One is the merchant ship maritime body, I'm forgetting the name of it, so that two names should not clash, right? And also they speak to, there is a history society, I'm not getting it. Is it? I don't know if it is this one. So this is just to take a clearance from them that the names that they are zeroing onto are not historically inaccurate. Right? And once these names are cleared by the CNS, it is put in front of, there's a parliamentary committee which usually just signs. And then it takes the approval of the, it goes to the PM and the president. President is the final approving authority. So this is a rough, this is roughly how the Navy goes about naming its vessels. 99% of the ships follow this nomenclature. I'd say even 100%. Once in a while you might find a certain ship with a different name. If you look at submarines, all the submarines that we have presently, the present Kalvari class, they are all named after predatory fishes, right? I happened to be, the ship on which I was a frigate. It was called INS Baythorn. It was named after a river. The river mountain range weapon is the general dictum for frigates. For cruisers or destroyers, these are the real hands, like the fighting hands of the fleet. Usually after state capitals. So the most recent one being Imphal, right? You all have heard of it. And Mormugao. So similarly, training ship will have an abstract name. So the training ship which is presently there in Kochi, it's called Tarangini. There was another one which was called Sudarshi. Again.
I think INS Tarangini is the only ship which is with full sail, like it's a full sail ship.
All female crew that
Circumnavigate.
No. The all female crew circumnavigated its own Tari. So Tarangini is a ship which has got cadets all along. And the Tarangini it goes around the world with cadets. So by and large, this is how it goes about. Amphibious ship, Ghadial and Magar, yeah. Kesari, correct.
So OPV?
OPV sir, Sumedha, Subhadra, Sukanya. Lot of such names.
Not ferocious.
They don't sound ferocious. Fleet tankers, you have Jyoti, Deepak. Functional name. Aditya, Jyoti, Shakti, and Shakti. These are the four tanks that we have. So if you just, Thomas, you were adding something.
I think the ship's name lives on after it is decommissioned again.
Yes.
It's reflected.
So that's a very nice point you brought up. So it's believed that ships never die, right? A ship which might have been decommissioned, the present INS Vikrant that we have.
Recently, we got one ship back from Maldives and it was reconsecrated sort of.
So the present day INS Vikrant that we have, the previous INS Vikrant was decommissioned long back, I think in the early 1980s. So ships keep getting reincarnated. Never will you find a ship after getting decommissioned and that something similar with the same name does not come up.
So if a ship is sunk,
Yeah.
it will be.
That name is retired.
That name is
I think I'll have to check this, but because I had read something about a new cookery coming up, so I'll check for this.
That was my next question.
Yeah, so I'll check for that because I read something about a new cookery coming up. If it's coming up, then probably it's valid for 100% of these things. Aircraft carriers are always named after like something which is grand, named after kings, right? Destroyers, all major cities. The Rajput class, again after warrior clans. Kolkata class, Kolkata cities. The new classes, the Mormugao class. Mormugao, Vizag class. Vizag, Mormugao and Imphal. Frigates are named after mountains, weapons, rivers. Corvettes, these are mostly anti-submarine corvettes. Again, these are also named after smaller weapons. Then you come to submarines. These are the older class of submarines. The present, the newest Kalvari class are all named after predatory fishes. And these are all Sindhu Ghosh, Sindhu Dwaj, again Sindhu from Sindh. And these essentially are referring to the fact that we command this area and we will win if there's a war. Sindhu Reed, Sindhu Ratna, Sindhu Kesari.
Chakra was named after the Russian Chakra.
So the Chakra was named after the Russian Chakra.
Insignia.
The first nuclear. funeral ceremonies, again this is common to all three services I believe. The volleys that you see being fired into the air are to get into the heart of the imaginary devil that might get into people's arms when they see their colleagues fallen in war. Right? Crossing the line. So you would often hear in sporting terminology, don't cross the line. That has got nothing to do with naval weddings. But there is a very nice ceremony which is performed in naval ships world across. Every time someone who's traveling in a naval ship or someone who's a part of a warship, and the warship happens to cross the equator for the first time. So there is a nice ceremony which happens on board, and that person is initiated into a club which is called shellbacks. So anybody who's crossed the equator once is called a shellback. So in the Western navies, it's done in the court of Neptune because he's supposed to be the god of the sea. In the Indian Navy, we do it in the court of Lord Varuna. And such is the desire to stick to tradition that even serving, even our PM, erstwhile PM in 1950, Jawaharlal Nehru, even he was not spared this ceremony, and he also had to undergo this ceremony. So what happens in the ceremony is that there's a mock darbar which is held on the helideck of the ship. Helideck is where the helicopter lands, right? And there'll be the junior most sailor would be made Lord Varuna. He'll dress up like Lord Varuna. He'll have a fake beard and all that. And there is a Lord Varuna's party, which would comprise of a barber, a dentist, at times the doctor as well, but not our ships don't do that. If there's a dentist, the dentist is a part of it. And then there are a couple of junior sailors who would be dressed up like mermaids. Okay? And yeah, because he's not Varuna, so he needs to have. So this is from a real crossing the line ceremony. Can someone guess the name of the ship from the inside? Kolkata, correct. This is the Royal Bengal Tiger on board INS Kolkata. So the guy you see sitting in the center, this guy is not Varuna. Okay. Probably his wife next to him. And here's, I think this guy looks, maybe this looks like
The bare-chested guys are the mermaids or the guards?
I'm not sure. Your guess is as good as mine.
They are the white.
So what essentially happens is everyone who's crossing the equator for the first time, the Lord Varuna, this is Lord Varuna's deputy who will be reading out those names. So every time that person is called in front of Lord Varuna, he will be asked to perform a task, which would be a funny task. Okay, and at the end of it, he is made to drink seawater. That's the ceremony. He is made to drink seawater, and he is given a certificate which says that he's been presented in the court of Lord Varuna after crossing equator for the first time, and he is a golden shellback. He is a shellback for life. Okay. Now there is also something called a golden shellback. A golden shellback is someone who's crossed the equator and the international date line. Just the terminology. Shellback is good enough to remember. This is what I don't think the Indian Navy gives certificates of golden shellbacks, but shellback certificates are given. I think you guys might know.
I just know about the privileges.
Okay. Yeah. If you could add on to what I've said.
So,
Privileges.
Technically, okay. So as per the tradition, shellbacks are allowed to keep one of their elbows while they are diving in the mess.
Oh wow.
And golden shellbacks can keep otherwise, as per this customs, we are not allowed to keep our elbows in there.
And there was the thing about during the olden time, you would keep your legs on the table.
Not imaginable in today's central conditions.
They cross the line so often that you can't.
Pura body like
The people who watch that, they are called polygon.
Okay, this is new. I'm not sure. I'll check on this.
They're called
Polygon. P-O-L-L-Y-W.
Okay, I've not read about
some
this.
kind of a
Maybe he might be right. I'm not
I
sure.
think it might be, why are they not called the sailors?
Okay. Ship's bell. Now, the reason why I've included this here is because there's a very nice story about when INS Vikrant got commissioned the last time. The then fleet commander of the Eastern Fleet, which is in Vizag, he travelled all the way down from Vizag to Kochi. Of course, he was an invitee as well, but he had come with a special gift for INS Vikrant.
the old bell.
Yes, that was the old bell which his father, by virtue of having commanded the previous INS Vikrant, was gifted by the ship's crew when he retired. And he gave it back to the present INS Vikrant. So if any of you happen to visit the new INS Vikrant, do go and have a look at the bell. It is the bell which was there on the original INS Vikrant. And there are the number of times the bell is ringing signifies a lot of things. I'll not go into the depths. Okay. Aye, sir. This is not to be confused with the I that some of our friends from Bihar and us try to please don't. That happens. So I sir is a very and for initially when I joined the Navy, I used to find it funny to say I to someone, but then now almost everyone around me does it, so I have also gotten accustomed to it. Fine. We are done with the first part. I hope you guys are not tired. I'll quickly go to the second part. I call it a sea of words, and as I mentioned previously, one aspect of the Navy which has absolutely fascinated me since the time I've joined is the contribution of the Navy to the English language. Right? There are so many terms that we use in our day-to-day lives which we do not know are from a nautical origin, and I'm sure some of you will be surprised today just to come across certain terms which I will be telling you about. Fine. Some common ones, and I'll tell you the stories behind it. By and large, did you know that it is a nautical term? How does it come into being? Anyone making a guess? Okay, so ships in olden days used to have sails, right? And a ship sailing along with the wind would be called sailing by, and a ship sailing away or against the wind would be called sailing not away. At large would be a ship behind. No, a ship sailing besides the wind, right? Again, there are contrasting.
Beside the.
This is the term I have read. Also, I think what Zoa said is also correct, because there are conflicting theories on the internet. You can pick either side, but by and large, that is where the term
At large also comes from this.
at large, I'm not sure. I need to fathom. Any guesses? Fathom is depth. So it used to be a unit of depth. Also, fathom used to be another thing. I'll tell you that also. Fathom used to represent 6 feet. 6 feet depth. Why the 6 feet depth?
Anchor.
You say something, sir? Okay. So the earliest ships. So the keel. Yeah. So the part which would remain below the water would be somewhat of that depth. So that is how they used to measure a fathom. One fathom used to be 6 feet. Another definition of the fathom which is there on the internet, it says that a person having spread his arms, both his arms, one end to other end would be about 6 feet. That is where fathom comes from. We very often say, especially our uncles, parents, they have this habit of saying, "Bilkul A1 cheese." Do you know how A1 came from? Where?
Ration
Not really. Where?
Ration quality. Ships.
No.
L1.
No. This is not A1 Okay, so A1, the meaning of A1 in today's day and time, if I say bilkul A1 cheese, that means it's of something which is of a very good quality. So every ship has a pennant number. Okay? Pennant number is essentially an alphabet followed by a digit or digits. Okay? So the alphabet signifies the class of ship that it belongs to, right? So if my ship is INS Vapor, which is a frigate, its number is F39. F stands for frigate, and 39 stands for the sequence in which it has come for that family, right? So A1 used to be a system of naming ships in ancient UK, and the Royal Navy, the ships which used to come from the initial numbers which were given to the best ships in every assembly, I'll say not assembly, every crop of ships. Crop is again the wrong word, but I know you get the drift. So the best ships used to be of the A1 variety, right, in the numbering system. So that is where this term A1 comes from. Then you have blind eyes.
Horatio Nelson.
Horatio Nelson.
He had a blind eye.
When he lost
And
at the back,
that
he turned.
he was turned.
Okay, so
I think it was
Traffic.
he chose to ignore.
yes,
Ignore
ignore the
the
road.
road.
He deliberately ignored,
Yeah.
right? So it chose to not look in one direction
Yeah.
altogether. Yeah, and Harshit Patel is not here, but he had asked me this question a few days back. What connection does he have with? What connection does turning a blind eye have with naval ranks? Anyone?
अभी तो जाने वाला है कुछ इधर ही
So essentially, the ranks that you see on the stripes, the circles, those are Nelson rings, right? So turning a blind eye, Nelson rings connection is fine. Loose cannon.
actual loose cannon. The cannons in the olden days were fixed steadily. If you don't fix them properly, the back they can go to the other side and unbalance the whole.
Perfect. Olden days, cannons used to be loaded on ships
And tight secure.
If you do not secure it tightly, there would always be a fear of the backfire going and hitting the ship's deck, which used to be wooden in olden days. So there would be risk of a fire. There would be risk of
Injury.
the entire ship going off.
Airlines.
Between the devil and the deep blue sea, who will explain this to me?
That skyline characters, Greek mythology thing.
This is not the conversation.
Sir, when you are walking the plank, I think the पीछे that guy is there with the whip pad.
This will require a diagram. Okay. So this is a cross section of the deck on which you will be walking. Okay. So in ancient days, it used to be made of planks, right? And in between the planks, the spaces used to be filled with tar, coal tar, right? So that it's one solid thing. Now imagine this here, and these parts are also made of planks, right? Now there would always be a part here and a little part here, which would remain devoid of coal tar, right? So to fill this, the junior most sailor or the youngest sailors on the ship would be suspended from a board, literal board, right? And they would sit there and hammer, or they would pour tar into it, even while the ship would be at sea, right?
Wow.
So this boy, poor boy, is literally caught between the sea and this board. Now because the number of injuries and the number of deaths would be innumerable, because they would keep falling from this board. So this board was colloquially called the devil. So this is where the devil in the deep blue sea comes from. Okay?
In A1, like, is it similar to the airlines, like Indigo is 6C?
No.
Indigo is 6C because deliberately choose it because
Yeah.
it sounds
Every
sexy.
airline has the.
Every other has a call sign, but that has nothing specific to the
It don't have to be alphanumeric. Air India is AI.
Just Delhi with D61. So this is again a nice way. Can you tell us more about it? Indigo 6C wala. Yeah, so I don't know if it's an urban legend, but we have encountered it in quizzes ourselves long back when we were. It's deliberate. Yeah.
Yeah, deliberately.
So the Indigo CEO back then, Rahul,
Bhatt.
So they wanted to pick up that alphanumeric thing, something which could also have recall. Okay. So when they were given a choice, they picked up the alphabet 6 followed by E, because when you pronounce it, it is pronounced as 6. So all of you know that.
6 echo.
No. 6. Okay, long shot.
Very long.
Long fire, long fire.
So in olden days, आप जब बोट के ऊपर से फायर कर रहे हो, शिप के ऊपर से फायर कर रहे हो, तो inaccuracy was immense. So you hitting a target was a long shot. So in today's day and time,
So that's why they have to come close to fire the rock.
yes, that is one reason. Feeling blue. This is not about going to class on Mondays. Feeling blue. Nautical origin?
Getting seasick.
C depression.
Huh?
C depression.
Serious. वो होता है जब जाते हैं तब अभी. So feeling blue is essentially if there is a death on board a ship. So all the flags on board a ship would change its color to blue. This is to signify that someone has died on board, right? And because there's been a death, everything would be gloomy. So that is where feeling blue comes from. So there are 3 phrases here: showing one's true colors, flying colors, and bamboozle.
One's true colors. Ships would fly under fake colors, especially in the era of age of sail. The pirates would fly under fake colors and come close and only actual black flag ऊपर आएगा. That is showing their true colors. Bamboozle तो meme बताया. Bamboozle getting from I don't know.
All 3 of them are connected, and you've almost given me almost the entire thing. So in olden days, ships used to be identified based on the flags that were in the air, right? So what pirates would do, they would hide their true colors. Instead of the pirate flags, they would fly flags of a friendly country to the ships that they were planning to attack, and then they would come close, and only when within attacking range they would reveal their true colors. So that is when showing one's true colors. Flying colors, when you are approaching a friend, you let the original colors of original flags fly, and it's flying and fluttering, and it's completely visible that you are a friendly ship which is approaching another ship. That is where flying colors come from. And bamboozle is almost a derivative of that pirate story itself. The pirates would hide it, come close, and then all of a sudden reveal their true colors and then attack. Right? Doldrums, we all know.
Is that the latitudes where this wind is
Next to the equator where
one piece per trumpet.
toe the line. Okay. इसके लिए one more bad sketch. So if this is the deck and if there's a parade which is happening on board a ship or certain divisional ceremony, so they needed to the sailors needed to stand in line to a particular part of the scene, right? The furthermost formation would be standing next to the scene. So their toes were supposed to be just within the line, right? That is where toe the line comes from. Leeway, to give someone some leeway. Leeward side, wind, anything. Yeah.
Two sides of the mountain, one facing the coast.
Yeah, so it has got something to do with that only. So leeway is essentially a ship drifting off from its course. Not too much, but just a little bit. Okay, and aided by winds in an opposite direction. So that is where leeway comes from. To be groggy.
Grog. Has rum.
Rum. Grog is a mixture of rum and
Gunpowder.
okay, so the initial grog used to be initial grog used to be a mixture of rum and seawater. Okay, and these were given to so there used to be this famous captain called who was nicknamed Grog. Old Grog.
He was Vernon Grog.
Vernon Grog, and he also had a name which called him.
Some attire he used to wear.
Exactly. That was because of a coat which he used to wear, and he would feed it to his juniors on the ship. To be aloof. Aloof is essentially a Dutch term which means someone who is bearing away. Okay. So in a fleet, if there are 10 ships in a formation and one ship happens to go off course, the ship is said to be said to be aloof. At sea, we all know. All at sea, lost. All hands are there. Everybody together. Bottoms up. This has got a nice history. What's the history? What's the story? Anybody knows this? Okay. So the story behind bottoms up is in olden times, sailors used to be tricked into joining the Royal Navy. Okay. And
the press gang. Basically, gang used to go select all the unnecessary people and throw them into.
No, that happened as well. So how they would be tricked into joining the Royal Navy is, so in olden times, if somebody pays you some money and you accept it in any form, either by trickery or consciously, you are said to have accepted the deal. So what they would do is they would offer these sailors beer, and the bottom of the beer would have a coin, right? Because the sailor has accepted the beer, it would be assumed that he has accepted the offer to join the Navy. And so bottoms up came up as a strategy to counter it. Okay.
So the sailor would check the whole.
Yeah, he checked the whole beer just to see is there a coin down below before saying yes or no, right? So that is where bottoms up comes from. Square beam.
One square plates.
Square plates essentially. अभी भी square plates तो नहीं मिलेंगे, but in naval museums you will find old wooden plates made which are square in form. Clean slate.
Navigation.
Almost. So olden times what used to happen? 4 hourly watches के end में all the positions, the coordinates, everything, star position, everything used to be written on a slate. And at the end of 4 hours, it would be white, clean, and a new guy would come and write down his findings. Shake a leg. Okay. So there are 2-3 origins. I'll tell you tell the funnier one first. So there is one theory which says that shake a leg came from doctors who would go to people who have received injuries in a gunfight or people who are lying dead and to check आज की डेट में जैसे हम शोल्डर पे चेक करके पूछते हैं जिंदा हो होश में हो या नहीं उसका पैर हिला के चेक I am not sure how to do this but this is one of the theories. The other theory is that shake a leg comes from the original Navy ball which used to happen back in the UK. So the Navy ball tradition where youngsters would be encouraged to go and dance with their partners and shake a leg. So we were talking about common things. So cats on ships used to be a very common thing. If you go to a warship today or a merchant ship today, the only animals you find there would be no rats. Cats are long gone. Bedbugs, cats, cockroaches. Rats, cockroaches. These are common. So in fact, the US Navy had cats on board till the 1970s or 80s. And their only function, only duty on board used to be catching rats. And they were given honorary ranks. The way, expert monster. And they would be given ranks. They would be given uniforms. The way we have for a lot of
donkeys,
goats and donkeys and even
goats.
Goats, Okay, the not so common ones. As the crow flies. Anmol will tell us more about
Fastest route to a certain
Quickest route basically like they would leave like a bird or whatever and they would whichever is the quickest route to land.
The bird
That is the distance as the crow flies.
Okay, so in olden days, there will be besides navigation, one of the problems which navigators would face would be fog, right? Fog में आपको कुछ नहीं दिखेगा and you want to reach land. So what these people used to do, what ships used to do, they would be having a set of 5 to 6 crows every time they would go on a long. And if you remember the second diagram, there was something called a crow's nest right on the top. So one person would climb up the mast, go till the crow's nest, release the crow from there, and the direction which the crow followed the ship would follow the crow, and they would reach the nearest piece of land as soon as possible.
So is the Navy cut funded route?
No. Yeah, I've read it at places, but I don't know if it's true. To tide over something. Yeah, the meaning remains the same. That you are trying to get over a situation, but how?
The tide is over, high tide is over.
Yeah, so you essentially tide it out, or you get over the tide. Just ride the tide till the time it's there, and then you can go back to doing what you do. So this is not exactly nautical. This is from the people who used to row boats back in old times. Boxing Day phenomenon. ये तो सबको पता है why Boxing Day came into being. But what is the nautical connection to this? Yesterday was Boxing Day. But what's the nautical connection? Naval connection? Yeah. So
Traditional boxing match.
So the story behind Boxing Day is that people would receive gifts on Christmas and the next day they would be unboxing it. So the word Boxing Day comes in. The naval connection here is that a majority of these gifts used to be transported via ship in ancient times. So this is the naval connection. Piping down essentially means end of the day. Shantu. So on board ships, let's say at 9 in the night, my ship's name is Bhatt. The quartermaster will announce good night Bhatt, and he'll make a long pipe. Yeah. To be taken aback.
Should rise.
How?
The ship suddenly stops.
The other way around.
That tide.
Ship
So-
suddenly accelerates.
Yeah, so the ship has sails. Let's say a sudden gust of wind comes, and all of a sudden the ship goes forward. So people will be thrown backwards, right? Ship shape or Bristol fashion. Ship shape, if you talk to any naval guy, he'll tell you that something being in ship shape means something being top notch. Absolutely. Chakachak shoot hai, right? And the reason why it's also called Bristol fashion is because
Bristol was the shipbuilding hub of the
perfect. Duffel bag. What is the naval connection of duffel bag? So Duffel was a city in Belgium, right, where these bags were first made. So the original duffel bags were not of the sort that you see today. Right? The original duffel bags were made for seafarers. They used to be elongated pieces of clothing, and they were used mostly by mariners. It has gotten improvised over time to the present form that we have. to batten down the hatches. So if you go on board a ship, the weather deck is almost there are hatches from which you can come out and everything else lies below. So let's say a ship is going to run into rough weather. There will be a central command which will say that please batten down the hatches, which means pull down all the hatches, lock it from inside and go to the bitter end. This was the surprise for me. Even I hadn't expected that this would be the answer. So any guesses? How does this come into? It is not what you think. Connection is coming. No, that's a different. That's line is coming. So
around
bitter.
the anchoring line there used to be the area was called beds and they had the ropes.
Very nice, very nice. So you are almost there. So the ropes which are used to tie the ship. Okay. So the end part of those ropes. Even today, if you go to a port or a harbour, you will see ships being tied with ropes. The end part of the rope is painted in red. Okay. End part. Those parts are called bits, and which signified the literal end of the rope. Okay. So that is where bit. This bitter does not come from bitter. It comes from bits, which is the last part of the rope which ties down a ship. Learn the ropes, getting your bearings. They both mean the same thing. Now, learn the ropes comes from the fact that seafarers are also supposed to be good rope masters. They need to know all the knots, so that they can. So a new guy who's come on board, he takes some time to learn all the knots. So it said that he's still learning the ropes till the time he becomes a master. Getting your bearings. This is in reference to seasickness. So if first time you sail on board, plenty of people get seasick, but after some time, many of them adjust, right? So they are said to be getting their bearings. No room to swing a cat. Please don't do this. Don't swing a cat. But this essentially refers to olden times where ships were not as spacious as they are in today's day and age. So this essentially referred to lack of space. To turn the corner. Turn the corner means to get over a difficult phase in life. And this comes from? This comes from ships which would turn from. Yeah, so two stories. One refers to Cape Horn, the other refers to Cape of Good Hope. But essentially, getting through a rough patch. Limeys already discussed. Tell us the story.
Captain Cook was going, they were going, the ship was, it had turned to Cape of Good Hope. They used to suffer from scurvy every time. Then they landed in Mozambique, I think, and the king there, they gave them lemons and oranges.
Perfect.
So this was a derogatory term used by the other
Yes.
navies to refer to the British Navy, those bloody limeys.
Yeah.
Also,
The French especially.
That's where we get the word Mozambique. The Hindi word Mozambique.
Listen to this.
Mozambique.
But the only thing that goes against this origin story
Which one is it? Mozambique one or limey one?
is the fact that the first Surgeon General of East India Company, who predated James Lind by around 140 years, had recommended lime and oranges in the diet for sailors to prevent scurvy. But
Was it implemented? Was it implemented?
No, the point is that it was assumed that James Lind, and during that time they discovered the.
But it was much before. Reality was much.
I mean, so nobody knows whether that. It was just that probably something came from.
Some of these theories are just nice stories.
They're
So
just nice
you might not be able to validate them in dated time. Through thick and thin. Again, this was a surprise for me. I didn't know this.
Ice.
More.
Iceberg.
What else concerning a ship can be thick as well as thin?
The wood.
Ice is a good guess. Wood is a good guess, but not
Ropes.
ropes. So a ship can be tied using a combination of thick ropes and thin ropes. Okay. That is where through thick and thin comes from. That's that. Reminds me of a batchmate who in first year prelims Viva.
Don't do it.
After studying online for anatomy practicals, he decided that I cannot pass. So at 5 in the morning, he decides to down a few drinks. And please don't try this.
Don't do it.
Thankfully, his roll number was very late in the Viva. So by the time, I mean, he was still reeking of alcohol, but he could answer something. So such Dutch courage is not encouraged at least here.
Why
You
not?
fit the bill.
Why
Okay,
not?
so Dutch courage essentially, yeah. So the Dutch seafarers were supposedly, they were supposed to be cowards. Okay. So they could only fight if they had had some alcohol. So this is where Dutch courage.
Again,
comes.
it's the enemy story about you. And you guys are.
Originally the Dutch were the-
Something which fits the bill.
That's for good seafarers. But
Fits the bill. Okay. So ships would receive their supplies.
supplies comes in the bill and you cross check.
Exactly. So once you have cross checked, it means that what has been supplied to you is fitting the bill. So it's been cross checked with the bill. जितना bill में mentioned है उतना आया है या नहीं आया. High and dry.
When ship is taken out for maintenance into the dockyard, winch it up.
It's high and it's dry.
dry.
Okay. Chonk or block again very interesting. I find
There's the block and tackles. Used to
explain more.
when you get the ship into the dock, I think you use a block and tackle to raise it up.
This is the ship's deck, right? These are the wooden planks. Now, what would happen in rough seas would the ship would have a lot of wooden things which would be lying here and there, which would not be fastened elsewhere, right? So to stop them from flying hither and thither, there were wooden blocks literally, and they would be bound against wooden blocks. That is where chock block comes from. Touch and go.
Position.
Touch and go is again two ways of going about it. A ship having come very close to a piece of land and then recovered, or the other part is the ship's base
Drags over the
drags over something and then recovers. That is where touch and go comes from. Navy blue, last one. It does come from naval uniform, but then the story is that sometime in the 1800s, the Royal Navy wanted a new color of uniform for their navy. Okay, and the prince, I'm forgetting the name of the prince, whoever it was back then, he decided on a combination of blue and white because it was the favorite color of his wife, the Duchess of some place, which I forgot. So this is how the Royal Navy color came into being.
Navy cut basically this is an urban legend कि Wills का जो Navy cut sutta है, the length of the sutta is such that during a break, during the sutta break you can smoke that sutta, appropriately smoke that one sutta fully. Smoking is injurious to
Okay, I have come to the end of the second part. If you guys have curiosity left, I'll take another 10 minutes. Or else we can call it a day here as well. What do we do?
He has a doubt, sir.
The word posh is also right. Port out, starboard home.
That's again
It's an urban legend, I think.
why is it urban legend? Because it predates the use of the word port for the, like he said, it was not the port was not called port to begin.
It was called
While the word posh has been in existence for at least 300 years before the word port started being used for the left side of it.
The word posh is older than we think.
Yeah, much older, like 300 years.
So one question on the boatswain.
Yeah.
Any story on why the boatswain is called?
All
so?
the boatswain.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have heard this from others. I don't have any sources to corroborate it. So the boatswain was so the ship will have a mast chief, boatswain mate. He's called boatswain mate, although it is derived from boatswain only. Okay, so the captain of the ship is supposed to have one right hand man, the senior most sailor of the ship. That guy is given the designation of MCBS, mast chief, boatswain's mate, right? And this boatswain would be a junior sailor who would accompany the captain of the ship whenever he is alighting from the ship and traveling by boat, right? And he will be doing all sorts of like jobs for the captain.
Is that coxswain?
No, that's a different.
Because he also in the ship, he has a captain with all the. He's like a.
Point to be noted.
Then I'll get back to you. I might. We'll cross check this, right? Okay. Are you guys? Huh?
मस्त चीजें तो आए थे. We haven't come to keel hauling.
Keel hauling नहीं डाला मैंने. I have just chosen a few. Okay. We spoke of the common one. This is the not so common one. So there is this famous cat in history called which was nicknamed Unsinkable Sam because it served on 3 warships. Nazi Germany, British, Royal Navy, 2 British ships all sank in action. But this cat survived every single sinking. And there have been documentaries made on this cat which are available on YouTube and Netflix if you want to. Third part, I got a story which I had written for the Golden Jubilee Memoir last year. So that was Sam was the editor. Diamond. So that was.
1 year later we had the platinum jubilee. That's time travel.
So I got a story for you. I'll take 10 minutes if you guys are okay with it. So
this is a nice story.
So this is a story from the time when I was on a ship, and we had gone to Iran. Okay. So at the end of the story, I'll ask you a question. Listen to the story carefully. Okay. And the question is, I'm telling you the question as well. How much of the story do you think is true? Answer this once you heard the answer. So the story is called A Sea Date with Royalty. Okay. So I'll tell you the context background to it. We had gone to Iran and we were on our way back from Iran. Okay. So it was a 7-day trip. We were on our way back from Iran. Things had gone off well. My commanding officer was happy.
Sponsorship.
And a paper.
And normal trip, na? Normal trip to Iran.
No, you don't take an abnormal trip to Iran.
You are never going to Iran for a vacation. So the visit had gone off well and we were on our way back. So as is the custom on board ships, whenever there's something good happens, we party. So yeah, we party. So there was a party the previous night. There was music, there was no alcohol, but there was a lot of good food, lot of dancing.
You nearly sold Navy and now
people dance till 2 in the morning and then
men dance till 2 in the morning. Let me.
Next morning something happens and I'll just be narrating all that. Okay. So it was a typical Sunday morning at sea. Bright sunshine, the early morning breeze, and unending stretches of the deep blue sea, made sweeter by the fact that we had partied till late the night before. Our captain was happy, and why not? We had gotten ourselves ready at extremely short notice for an overseas deployment to Iran. My question is, how much of this story do you think is true or false? I will not answer that. I'll leave it to your imagination. Okay, so we started with something, the topic for today was some lines from the Warriors and the Carpenter. Please go back and have a look at this poem, lovely poem. Can be interpreted in multiple ways. Some might even say it can be interpreted in today's political scenario. I'll not get into that. We started with some lines from that poem. I'll end with the lines the poem ends with. Oh, oysters and the carpenter, you had a pleasant run. So, you guys are the oysters for today. I'll assume the carpenter's role. Shall we be trotting home again? And I know you guys are going to say yes to this. But what happens in the poem hopefully hasn't happened here. Answers came there, none, and this was tasty or because they eaten. So all the oysters in the poem get eaten by the Warriors and the carpenter. But here all of you seem to be alive and kicking, so that's nice. Thank you all for being very patient. I think I've spoken for almost an hour. Before I end, I need to place my appreciation on record for all of you who've been keeping this thing going. It's a very nice thing. Please pass it on to your juniors, even when you're leaving college. Such talks are very nice. If you manage to get speakers from outside, very good. If not, catch one of the in-house speakers, Anand sir, and
Your is.
and just to end and a self plug. If you haven't read our book till now, please read it. There's a part 2 coming in July. You can watch out for that as well.
Thanks a lot, Hitesh. Thanks a lot, Manish, for that wonderful talk. And it's nice to see all of you here. The other important thing is read a book called Of Cabbages and Kings by O. Henry. That takes its title from the same Cabbages and Kings from this particular thing. The other thing is that if you want to have stories to tell in life, okay, don't go from Delhi to Pune, Pune to Delhi. उधर पुल लगा के and then wonder कि यार मेरे पास कहानियाँ क्यों नहीं, right? If all your postings are from Pune to Delhi, the chances that you will have कहानी anything beyond Jhelum Express में पानी खत्म हो गया. So whenever you are in international water, on international thing, you will have that's the best hardest part. They will be always there for you, right? When we were going to evacuate our team from Kabul, Ashok Chakran, this thing, we had two F-16s trailing us on either side for the entire duration that we were flying Pakistan. But that was to keep us in that corridor which they had cleared up for us to fly after around 22 hours of negotiation. But it is nice to see a slow moving, we were in a slow moving Rajhans aircraft, the one that just landed somewhere, Ayodhya. Ayodhya means the first aircraft that landed, it actually was at one point of time the Prime Minister's aircraft. That's the aircraft we are allowed to take to Kabul, and we had these, I'm sure the F-16 must have had a tough time trying to keep so slow in keeping pace with that aircraft that we had. So anyway, I'll request some of the students to come up with a couple of talks for January, and let us sort of keep this thing going. One talk a week, 2 speakers ideally, if not 2 speakers, at least 1 speaker, so that we don't lose. We had this thing for many months, couple of 2.5 years actually, that we had these Qriosity talks. I had given Hitesh a copy of the scroll, which was basically the magazine brought out by the History Society. So we can revive that also. It's nice, it's just a sort of record of things that have taken place. And if any one of you is interested, you can take it from this thing. Thanks a lot everyone for coming here, and see you again next month. Bye.